Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I think we just got another one. Excellent. All right. Good night. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bridget Shearer. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Belmont. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for another one in our series of Belmont Talks. These are virtual and for the first time tonight, a hybrid talk that we're giving on topics that we hope are of interest to the community. We have talked about our tree removal permit here in the city of Belmont. We've talked about invasive species, and the other one is escaping me right now. What else? The other topic. And tonight we're very excited to have Rachel Curtis-Robles from the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District to talk to us about controlling bugs and rodents and various vectors. And the Vector Control District provides a service. I'm sure Rachel will talk more about it. It's one of those things that we all take for granted here in the county, and it's important that we all learn about it, what it does and how it all keeps the people and the animals and the plants safe in our community. So I'm very grateful to have Rachel speaking this evening. I'm going to step away in just a moment. If anybody has questions, please put them into the chat. The Park and Rec Department's volunteer coordinator, Susan Grandina, will be monitoring the chat. And this presentation will be recorded and be put up on our website for other folks to see. Oh, there we go. Just got it back. And as we are just trying out our hybrid format for the first time this evening, we'd be grateful if those of you that are joining us by Zoom or otherwise could fill out the survey and just let us know how it went. You know, would you prefer this type of format to continue as hybrid, or is all Zoom better, or should our goal be to go all in person? Any feedback we get on how we're conducting this presentation, and also any ideas on topics that we might want to present to the community in the future would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, I'm going to hand off to Rachel. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here and have the opportunity. We've had a lot of nice relationships with Belmont Park and Rec and with the library over the past several months. And so I'm really pleased to be able to talk to another audience here. I'm Rachel. I work for San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District. My role is as the Public Health Education and Outreach Officer. I do all our external communications. I do our PR, I do our media, I do our social media, I do education in classrooms, I do education to scout groups, I do education to county staff throughout the whole county regarding a lot of different topics. And I'm really pleased here to talk to you today about what the district is and what we do and how we're funded and a bunch of different things. So first of all, I think it's important to realize where we came from. So in 1904, Burlingame actually wrote to the University of California entomologists to ask for help with mosquitoes. Because if you go back into the historical newspaper records and literature, you can see things like, during the summer of 1904, the mosquitoes in the Burlingame district were almost intolerable. Mosquitoes would gather so abundantly on one's clothes that sometimes the color of the suit was almost obscured beneath the general effect of the light brown produced by the marsh mosquito. Another quote says, Coyote Point has long been known by the residents in the neighborhood as a famous place for mosquitoes. Indeed, the construction of a hotel is said to have been abandoned because of the abundance of mosquitoes. So they were realizing very early, we're going to have a lot of economic difficulties developing the peninsula unless we can control the mosquitoes. During the summer of 1904, we captured in 5 minutes a pint cup full of mosquitoes. People come here in order that they may live out of doors, and with hordes of hungry mosquitoes waiting to devour them, the desirability of inaugurating a warfare against the pests can at once be appreciated. And then even into 1912, after the efforts had already been started, even then they were still a problem. Mosquitoes were so thick that life was unbearable. The Peninsula Hotel, a famous resort located in San Mateo, had to be closed up in the middle of the season. Everyone who was not held in some way or another left town. So you can see that even though today we enjoy a relatively mosquito-free existence, this has been a problem that was recognized and dealt with in the early 1900s. In fact, in 1905, California state law was enacted to allow mosquito and vector control districts to operate throughout the state. California is really a leader in this area. I'm from the East Coast. I also lived in Texas during graduate school, and mosquito control there is very different than here. We really are the gold standard. We really are the leaders in the nation for how to conduct a robust integrated vector management program to reduce mosquito populations and disease risks. So we are an independent special district. We serve the whole county. We are the only special district in the county that does serve the whole county. We are a county government, but we're not part of the county government. So we're not under the same umbrella as many of the other departments in the county. We are separate. Our finances are separate, and I'll talk on that in a minute. We are funded by property taxes and special benefit assessments. So people voted over the years in various ways that they would like to have mosquito and vector control in our county. And so through those votes, our funding is enabled. Our services are provided at no charge. So beyond what we pay in taxes as part of our annual property tax bills, there are no additional charges for any of the services I will mention tonight. And our mission is to safeguard the health and comfort of the citizens and anyone who lives in San Mateo County through a planned program to monitor and reduce mosquitoes and other vectors. So as I mentioned, taxpayers, thank you very much, fund our program. Most of our revenue comes from property taxes and special benefit taxes based on households throughout the county. There are a few other sources of revenue, but taxes are the main base of our program. If you live in the eastern central part of the county, you were part of the original vector control district that started in 1916. Back when all those quotes were talking about mosquitoes landing all over people. In that part of the county, you may notice on your tax bill, it says mosquito abatement, $3.74. That's the base rate. And then based on the property appraisal of your property, you pay an additional 0.00001805 per dollar of your appraised value of your property. And then property owners in the north and western and southern part of the county pay a special benefit assessment that averages about $18.51 per single family equivalent. Overall, everyone in the county on average pays about $20 a year in taxes. This can range a lot. Some people pay less, some people pay more, but on average $20 to really enjoy what we consider a fairly mosquito-free existence in the peninsula, especially considering where we were over 100 years ago. So our work is very heavily based on using integrated pest management, integrated vector management, as we call it sometimes in our role. So using a toolbox, starting with the tool that is the easiest and that has the least effect on the remainder of the environment. And then if that tool doesn't work, building up and using layers of tools until we can control the problem. So we do, as our bread and butter, mosquito control. That includes mosquito fish. At our office in Burlingame, we have a building that part of the building actually has several large tanks where we keep hundreds and thousands of mosquito fish. If somebody has a pool that's no longer in use on their property or a little fish pond, places where mosquitoes love to grow and breed, we can deploy some of those fish and they will eat the larvae, and those fish will breed and grow more fish until they reach capacity of the water and continue to eat the mosquito larvae. We have 4 scientists on our staff who are experts in identification of all sorts of insects and arthropods. So if you ever find a weird bug that you don't know what it is, and you would like to know what it is, because that is the first step in how we control a problem, you can visit us online or call us and say, I have a weird bug, I want to know what it is. You can send us a photo and an email. Usually we can identify from the photo, but if not, we can come to your house and pick up that sample, take it back to the lab, put it under the microscope and see what it is and give you a report after that. We do rodent inspections. We want people to feel safe in their homes. So we don't want mice or rats getting into your house because that's a disease risk. They can carry diseases. And so we can come to your house and do a full inspection of the outside of your house to see if there's any attractants that are attracting rodents to your property or nooks and crannies where they could get in and start to cause a problem. This is really a service we try to tell everyone about because depending where you live on the county, you may or may not have mosquito problems, but are in all of San Mateo County, so we can all definitely use a rodent inspection at our homes. We, in the summer in particular, we do a lot of yellow jacket control, so yellow jacket nests, and putting a very small amount of pesticide in a very focused area to get rid of the yellow jackets. We do disease surveillance, so we are regularly looking, collecting ticks along trails and parks throughout the county, and then testing those ticks to see if they have the Lyme disease pathogen or other pathogens. Also, a lot of the mosquitoes we collect in the summer, we are testing for West Nile virus or other pathogens to make sure we are staying on top of understanding the risk of disease in our county. And then, of course, I'm here and I do community education, and all of our staff all the time are doing community education, person to person, staff to resident, all sorts of, a lot of one-on-one settings, but also group settings like this. One really thing important to know is the life cycle of the mosquito, because until we know the pest, we can't control the problem. Mosquitoes need water to complete their life cycle. So the first 3 stages of the life cycle of mosquito happen in water. The eggs are laid in or near water. The larvae will hatch from the eggs, and they are long, little, wiggly looking worms. And then they will turn into pupa, and the pupa will then, those are what the adults emerge from. So mosquitoes, after the female has fed on blood, only the females feed on blood. The males do not feed on blood. Only the mommy mosquitoes, I tell the kids, need to feed on blood because they use that energy in the blood to grow their eggs. When they're ready to lay their eggs, they seek out water to lay their eggs. This is important to know because if we find adult mosquitoes near our homes, we know that somewhere there's a water source. And so a lot of what we're doing every day is looking for the water source, because trying to control adult flying mosquitoes, it's much more difficult than just controlling the source of the water and eliminating the problem there. So some types of mosquito sources include things like storm drains. So when you walk along the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the street are those grates that we probably don't notice a lot of the time, but when it rains, that's where our storm water floods to. A lot of those flow out, most of them flow out to the bay. But the way that they're designed is to, because so much can go through, not just the water, but the leaves or junk from the street, there's this part at the bottom where that junk can sit. Well, sometimes also water is sitting down there. And so the mosquitoes will be growing down in that drain and then coming out from there. Some other places would be marshes. We have the bay, and even on the coastal side of the county, we have saltwater or brackish marshes. And so those are all places where if the water is standing still for long enough, places where the tide does not go in and out every day, those are places where mosquitoes can grow. Your gutter, if you don't clean your gutters, there's leaves in your gutters clogging them up, that water there can grow mosquitoes. Sometimes in different parts of the bay, we have a lot of, like for example, Redwood Shores or Foster City, where the ground is, I don't know how to say, like
doesn't drain well.
It's fill. It's not actually, the marsh was filled in. Sometimes there's subsidence under the buildings there, and so it creates a pocket where then water can fill in, and then we have mosquitoes in those areas. Or if somebody has a burst pipe under their house, that can create a giant puddle that the mosquitoes love to breed in. Pails in our backyard, little fish ponds, anywhere where the water is standing, and the mosquito life cycle can go as fast as a week. So from a tiny egg all the way to an adult mosquito in just 1 week. So a lot of what we want to do is make sure people are checking their yards and dumping out water once a week so the mosquitoes cannot grow in that water. We have 10 technicians who visit thousands of sources. And so in any given day, when I first started working here a year ago, they always said, oh, I'm going to go check sources. Everyone was always checking sources, and they didn't really know what it meant. But now I know it means we have a mapping software that we all have an iPad or a computer version that shows a map of the entire county. And it has pins for every single water source that we know about that either has in the past had mosquito larvae growing in it or has the potential to have mosquito larvae in it. And so our technicians are by zones of the county. Each of them has a different area of the county, and they go to that zone and checking sources every day. We check sources as part of IPM, as part of our integrated pest management. We are not going out and putting pesticide if there is no mosquitoes in that water. If there are mosquitoes in that water, we wait until they're at the stage where our application of pesticide is perfectly timed. We don't apply it too early. We try not to apply it too late. We try to get just when the mosquitoes are nearing becoming pupa, but not yet pupa, because the kinds of pesticide we use target those stages and they halt the growth. I do want to touch on some of the pesticides we use. We do rotate. That's part of good IPM, is making sure that if you're using the same pesticide all the time, those mosquitoes can develop resistance. And then you have an even bigger problem. You have a population of mosquitoes that is resistant to the pesticide and can continue to grow and breed despite applying pesticide. The other thing is that there are a lot of pesticide options available right now. So some of the most frequently used pesticides we use are very targeted to just mosquitoes. We have one called an insect growth regulator, and that targets mosquitoes and it keeps them from growing. It keeps them sort of, I call it the Peter Pan pesticide, because it keeps them young forever. And then we have another one that is actually a bacteria. So it's using an organism against another organism. It's a bacteria that goes into the water. The mosquitoes eat that bacteria, and then it kind of dissolves their guts. It's not a way that I would like to die, but it is a good way for mosquitoes to die, and it's very specific to the mosquitoes and not affecting other things. So our technicians are out every single day, Monday through Friday, and inspecting over 25,000 of these in a year. And this includes marshes. This includes some people in their backyard have a source that we just know is always likely to breed mosquitoes, and we're setting traps. If somebody calls in and says, I have adult mosquitoes flying around my house, we're going to go and we're going to set a trap, because there are many kinds of mosquitoes. So first we need to know what kind of mosquito it is. Some mosquitoes really love to grow and breed in those storm drains under the street, Culex pipiens. Some mosquitoes really love to grow and breed in tree holes, more common in Portola Valley and Woodside, and the more tree part of the county. Or that's Aedes cyarensis, the tree hole mosquito. And some mosquitoes love to grow in tiny containers in our backyards, and some mosquitoes love to grow in the marshes. So if we catch some of those mosquitoes, we take them to the lab, and the scientists identify which kind of mosquito is causing a problem here, and we know where to start looking for the water. Because otherwise you're just blindly trying to look all over the area for the water source. And that is also part of good IPM, is making sure you're doing surveillance. So I already mentioned pesticides, but even before we get to pesticides, we like to do something called physical control. So if there's a water source and we can just physically dump it out, or if it's a marsh and it's a part of the marsh that is being reconstructed or allowed to be maneuvered a little bit, and we can move some earth so that the tide can go in and out and not be stuck there for the water to be standing, that can be part of what we do. So we work a lot too with different organizations and agencies that are doing restoration projects and construction projects to help reduce that mosquito breeding sources. And then, as I mentioned, the mosquito fish will eat the larvae, and so they're very popular too. We place them, a lot of them in the summer, and they're very hardy. As long as the water source is big enough, they can survive years and years. In the summertime in particular, we're worried about this mosquito that likes to grow in the storm drains, because this is one of the prime West Nile virus vectors. And so Culex pipiens grows in storm drains. And so in the summer, we have a very intense storm drain program. So you may recognize our white Jeeps, particularly in Belmont, Redwood City, sort of the bay side of the county. These Jeeps are treating over 30,000 drains. So again, in the map system, we have a little point that shows where every single storm drain is that we know about. And every 2 weeks, we're going and we're spraying a very fine mist of a kind of a mineral oil in there, and it suffocates the mosquitoes. The good thing about this one is, even though those storm drains are draining to the bay, once this mineral oil is exposed to the sunlight in the bay, it disintegrates, and so there are no long-term effects of this. We do a lot of identification of weird little bugs. So people wondering, what is this fuzzy caterpillar? what is this really big looking thing that looks like a mosquito? It's not a mosquito, it's a crane fly, and they don't bite, even though they look like mosquitoes. Or things like we can help with cockroaches or mites, or even identifying things like bed bugs. You have to know the problem, what the problem is, before you can start to solve the problem. So we're really here to help with our expertise to help you know what the problem is and how to work through it. As I mentioned, there are rats in all of San Mateo County. Rats are really good at taking advantage of human-created messes to enhance their survival. So we have a lot of technicians who are very passionate about doing rodent inspections and making sure that people live in really secure housing where rats and mice cannot get in. You can see here, well, maybe not online so much, but in the top picture, there's kind of, rats are very habitual, so they will run the same path back and forth over many days, many months, and the grease from their fur will eventually leave what we call a little rub mark from their fur rubbing against that surface. It leaves a very distinctive little kind of a sooty, greasy mark. And now you know what they are. You will probably be like looking around your house outside, you're like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. That's so gross. And so that's rub mark. So that's one of the signs we look for. But a lot of what we do is just making a very comprehensive list for all the inspections. Like, this is custom to your property. Here's exactly, like, here's a hole that you might not think looks big enough, but rats can squeeze through a hole just the size of a quarter. And so we'll go point out all those. Any gaps under the eaves in your roof. Fruit trees can be an attractant, so you have to make sure you're picking up the fruit as it falls or even ripe off the tree so that the roof rats are not going up there and nibbling in the fruit. I didn't know they even like to eat lemons and oranges and all sorts of citrus things that you might not guess that a rat would like to eat, because we think of them as eating peanut butter and cheese. We do some rat baiting program as contracted by a few cities, and that's just in the summertime. And we are trained to deploy in the rat boxes, in the bait boxes, and that helps to reduce the rat population along certain rivers and streams in the county. I do want to mention too that we are all certified by the state health department. So through the California Department of Pesticide Regulations, it's mandated by law that we are trained. So we each have a little gold card that says that we are subject matter experts, because we had to study. I hadn't had to study since like school a long time ago, but we had to study and pass 4 tests. And one is all about pesticides and safe pesticide use and when not to use pesticides. One is about mosquitoes, all the different kinds of, I think, several dozen different mosquitoes that can be found in California and the diseases they carry and their habitats and where to look for them. One about other crawling things that are not mosquitoes, such as fleas and ticks and flies and mites and all sorts of little things like that. And one about rodents and wildlife and other kinds of pests. So we take those tests, and then after we take those tests, we have to maintain our certification. And so just like, I think just like doctors, but we're not doctors. Just like doctors have to take continuing education credits, we have to take continuing education credits on a 2-year cycle so that we stay up to date with what's going on in the pesticide world and the vector control world. So all of our staff in any given year, we collectively complete a few hundred hours of CEU time among our staff. So it's really good that we're all staying up to date on current methods. We do yellow jacket control. This is one of our most popular services. Last year, we did over 1,200 yellow jacket nest treatments or removals throughout the county. Yellow jackets are more active in the summer. Right now in the spring, it'll be one queen yellow jacket looking for a hole, starting to build her nest. And so we're starting to get reports of activity. And what we'll do is we'll go in our BSU and we have a little puffer and we find the hole. These are ground nesting yellow jackets. So they have a hole in the ground. I don't have a picture. They have a hole in the ground and there's a little tunnel that leads usually to some sort of cavity in the ground, and their nest is in there. So we have a little puffer and we'll get right down in there and puff right into the hole a little bit of pesticide and they will carry it into their nests. And I always like to say, we are using a pesticide. The aim is to kill and eliminate the yellow jackets, because yellow jackets are, we love pollinators. Yellow jackets are not really pollinators. Yellow jackets are very good at finding meat and sugar to eat and bothering you at your picnic or at your dinner table if you're eating dinner outside. And so a lot of people think, oh, I have yellow jackets in my backyard. I'll go to the hardware store and I'll buy a bottle. I'll sneak out in the middle of the night and I'll just spray it everywhere. Well, we, with our training and our bee suit, can go and spray a very small of exactly what's needed. And actually frequently we'll spray, it's kind of an underspray, because we'll ask the person to then monitor the nest over the next week or so and say, if the yellow jackets are still continuing after a week, please call us back and we'll reapply the spray. And so that is actually what most, like, very frequently happens is, and so I think it's, I just like it as an ecologist. I feel like we're being very judicious in our use of the pesticide, because we're actually sometimes under applying and then have to go back and like finish the treatment. So it's a very popular service, and it's one that could be a little contentious if people are worried, but we're doing it in a very controlled manner. And the other thing I want to point out is we're very concerned about other pollinators in the area. We like bees. We love bees. Bees are very important. We love bees. Bees allow us to eat food every day. So we do not do anything about bees. If we get a call and it's about a bee or bee swarm, we can advise the person. Swarming bees will frequently rest for a few hours and then move on. If the bees do not move and it seems like they want to make a hive in your backyard, you can call the Beekeepers Guild, the San Mateo County's Beekeepers Guild, and they have a list of people. Well, you don't call them, I guess. You go on their website and they have a list of people that you can call to see if they will come and get the swarm if they're interested in the swarm.
We're going to have the Beekeepers Guild talk in one of our talks.
Yes, Susan's saying they'll have you will have the beekeepers here to give a talk as one of these talks. So that is about our yellow jacket control. We do a lot of tick surveillance throughout the county, particularly between the months of December and March, and then even into the summer, when the Western black-legged ticks are particularly active. The Western black-legged ticks are the ones that can carry the germ that causes Lyme disease. In our county, in San Mateo County, the number of ticks infected or carrying around the Lyme disease germ is very low. We find we've tested over 25,000 ticks over the past few decades, and we found less than 5%, probably about between 3 and 5% of the ticks, Western black-legged ticks, are carrying the Lyme disease germ. This is very different on the East Coast, where I grew up. In some places, more than 60%, 60% of the ticks are carrying the Lyme disease germ. So a lot of our education and outreaches is about tick bite prevention in general. It's not super Lyme specific because the risk here is very low compared to other places, but we do want people to avoid tick bites. And so if anyone ever wants to talk about tick bite prevention, I'm happy to do that. I have a little song and dance I do. And then we do tick surveillance too at some schools throughout the county. You can imagine in schools that are right next to an open area or a forested area, there are sometimes ticks. And so we work very closely to collect ticks to help the schools understand, and then help the maintenance staff understand what they can do to reduce how many ticks are there. And it's mostly with things like keeping the edges very trimmed and neat so that ticks cannot sort of meander into the area where the children are playing. I'm going to bounce back to mosquitoes for a minute, because in 2013, there was a detection of an invasive mosquito called Aedes aegypti in Menlo Park. Aedes aegypti is not native to the United States, certainly not native to California. It is the mosquito that can transmit dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, and Zika virus. We do not want Aedes aegypti. Unfortunately, it is spreading throughout the state, along with another kind of invasive Aedes mosquito called Aedes albopictus. It's moved quite a lot in the past few years. In 2013, we had our first detection in Menlo Park, and the district worked really, really hard, harder than probably most other districts would have said was reasonable. And what we did was a very intensive community effort with neighborhoods to go around to check all their yards for the little containers that these mosquitoes like to breed in backyards. So it was a lot of door-to-door knocking and checking backyards. And after a few years, the state said, you did a great job. You eradicated this invasive mosquito from your county. So good job. But now we're always, because it's spreading more again, we're always on the lookout. So if you ever notice a mosquito that's biting in the daytime, is very small, and it has zebra-like kinds of legs, black and white stripes, you should call us and let us know. You should call us anytime you think there's more mosquitoes than ought to be by your house, so we can come and check out the problem. But in particular, we're on the lookout for these because we don't want that they could become established in our county again. They prefer to lay their eggs one at a time. Some mosquitoes lay their eggs all stuck together in what's called an egg wrap. But 80 mosquito lay their tiny little eggs, and they usually lay it in a small container in your yard or in your house where there's water, or they can even sense where there will be water. It's, for example, a saucer or a flower pot or a vase, and they will lay their sticky little eggs on the side. And then when the water comes up, it signals to the eggs it's time to hatch, and then they hatch and they fly out. In addition to the invasive Aedes mosquito that can transmit those diseases, we do know that we have Culex pipiens, which is the mosquito that grows in the storm drains usually. And they can spread West Nile virus. West Nile virus is usually a disease between mosquitoes and birds, sometimes horses and people. In birds and mosquitoes, it can transmit in that cycle. But when an infected mosquito bites a horse or bites a person, the horse or the person can become very ill. Last year in the state of California, I believe there were 127 cases of West Nile virus, and there were several deaths. This disease particularly affects older individuals with weaker immune systems, and so we want to be particularly vigilant for those populations to be aware of West Nile virus. We have not detected West Nile virus in mosquitoes in our county for a few years, so we have not had to do any intensive adulticiding or spraying, as you would say, since 2019. But it's really good when people can report to us the dead birds, because the dead birds can be the first indication in an area that West Nile is active. In addition, a kind of a fun thing is that we have 2 flocks of chickens in our county that are part of our district work. So in a few weeks, we'll get our young pullets in. One coop is located in East Palo Alto, and one coop is located in San Mateo. And I think usually we have about 7 or 8 chickens in each flock. We collect a little bit of blood from them every week or every other week. I'd have to check. I think it's every other week. And we then test the blood to see if they have West Nile virus antibodies. Chickens do not get sick. Chickens do not die from West Nile virus, so they're really good sentinel. There's something to look at, and we can test their blood easily to see if there's West Nile virus in the area. They're very pampered chickens, actually. And then I do our community education. I do a lot of work with children right now, preschool programs, elementary school programs. I do high schools. I can work with a wide range of students and do it all in an age-appropriate manner. My background is to some degree in health communication and public health, and so I really enjoy teaching youth how to keep themselves safe and that bugs are not all scary. And you may have seen us at the fair or at some of the community events we go to throughout the year. We do a lot of education too about how to choose an effective insect repellent for if you are going somewhere, you're going to be outside where you know there are mosquitoes, maybe not here, but maybe you're traveling somewhere and you know there's going to be mosquitoes. So I can give education about how to choose an effective repellent. This is an ad that we ran. We had a slightly different shaped one that we ran on the buses last summer. So we are happy to do service requests for anyone who lives in San Mateo County. You can visit us online. There's a little service request form that you can fill out what service you're looking for. You can give us a call. You can call just to ask, hey, do you do this? And the answer is probably yes, but if it's not yes, then we probably know who else does it, because we get a lot of the same kinds of calls. So if it's a wildlife thing, and it's not within our wheelhouse, we can have you work with animal control or Fish and Wildlife, or we have a lot of networks of who to contact. We are located on Rollins Road in Burlingame, and I'm happy to take any questions, or you can call or email us anytime.
Quick question about, for yellow jackets, you know those little plastic things you hang up and they have stuff in them and you hang them in your tree, are they effective? Is that a good thing to do or not?
Yeah, let me obviously, so Susan asked about those little yellow jacket traps that you can hang in your tree. They have stuff in them. Are they effective? Are they not? They are really good for attracting yellow jackets. They have a kind of a smelly situation going on in there. You do have to replace that smelly stuff as per whatever the package is. The biggest problem we find with those is people are putting them like right in the middle of where they want to eat. They think, oh, they're gonna go there instead of going to me. We want you to place them a little bit away from where you're eating, because the yellow jackets will come towards them. If they come towards them and you happen to be there, then they'll come for you. But if you place them a little bit away, you can sort of like trick them to going somewhere else. And then if you notice that they're there and you kind of notice where they're going back to when they're done finding a snack, you can sometimes figure out where their nest is in the ground. Once you have a good idea where the nest is, that's when you can call us or ask online, like, hey, I know where the nest is. Can you guys come, take care of it?
Do they all nest in the ground?
Student wants to know if they all nest in the ground. Not all yellow jackets and wasps do nest in the ground. Some of them will make like a, under the eaves of your house or on the corner of a building. We can help with those sometimes, but there's other insects that also nest like that. So our primary focus is on the ground nesting ones, because that's pretty much guaranteed that they are ground nesting. Yellow jackets, they're very aggressive. We want to eliminate that vector risk. And I do want to point out too, there's actually a definition in the California state law and the health and safety code of what a vector is. And a vector is something that can transmit a disease or can cause harm to persons or animals. And so that's where yellow jackets fall in. They cannot transmit disease, but they can create harm for people. So people who have allergic reactions or anaphylactic shock reactions. And so that's where they fall in.
They don't do anything with wasps? No.
No, we tend to leave wasps alone unless somebody is very adamant that they need help with that. There's also a little bit of a distinction of we're not licensed to do structural pest control. So if somebody has a wasp nest in the wall of their house, we can't do that because we are not trained and licensed for that. So we also are very good about making the distinction of that is somebody you need to call somebody else for. And that would probably be a private company that you would have to pay. But if you want just advice, like, hey, this is happening, what are my options? We're really good at giving advice.
And it's all free?
Yes, free advice. Does anyone else have questions online? I don't see any questions. Okay. Oh wait, maybe there is a question. Sorry, I'm in the chat, not on the QA. Oh, here I see. Okay. John asked, do mosquitoes have a season? Are there parts of the year I don't need to worry about? That's a great question, John. I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of us feel like mosquitoes are a summertime thing. Mosquitoes are definitely faster to grow and more active in the summertime, but they are a year-round thing. So unfortunately, we need to kind of keep an eye out for mosquitoes all the time. That being said, things like West Nile virus tend to have a season. So West Nile virus in our county, we worry more about in the summer and the late summer into the fall. That's when we worry about that mosquito and that disease. The other mosquitoes that are around different times of the year may or may not have different kinds of disease risks. But if you do notice mosquitoes around your house in December, call us, we'll set a trap, we'll see what they are, and we'll figure out where they're coming from. And then John also asked, do fleas have a season when I need to be careful about them? That's a good question. I'm not sure there's a season per se. It tends to fleas are very host dependent. And so you need a warm thing to drink the blood from, and they tend to be associated with nests of things. So the nests of ground squirrels, or if your cat gets into it, and then wherever your cat sleeps is likely to have a lot of fleas in it. And so it tends to be more when animals are moving around that we encounter them, or if our pets bring them home, then they'll establish themselves quite nicely in whatever corner or corners that they sleep in.
Somebody asked a question about, do you see that one of our neighbors feeds deer and the food attracts rats? What's the best way to deal with rats?
Hi, Bridget. The best way to deal with rats is to convince the neighbor not to feed the deer. Unfortunately, and the other thing to do, and this is why we work with Fish and Wildlife a lot, is I think it's illegal to feed wild animals in the state of California because it can create a lot of secondary problems. It can also create problems where the animals become very more accustomed to humans, and then actually that's detrimental to the animals because they may be more likely to get into situations that somebody is not so kind in feeding them, but more likely to go near cars and get hit by a car and other things. So a really good thing would be to talk to your neighbor. If you don't want to be the person who talks to your neighbor, you can call us. We're really good at talking to neighbors and we can try to help with the problem, especially if there's a rat issue and you know the rat issue might be related to next door.
Are cockroaches considered part of your vector control?
Susan asked about cockroaches. Yes. I mean, we're good at cockroaches. I was gonna say we love cockroaches, but we don't really love cockroaches. But there are several different kinds of cockroaches that can be found. Some cockroaches do like to live in our houses, and so we can help you identify the cockroaches that live in our houses versus the cockroaches that like to stay outside and live in the little, what are they called? Those things in the ground that sometimes have electrical wires in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the cable boxes or whatever. So we get calls. We know like certain time of year we're okay, it's time for us to get the cockroach call from this one part of Redwood City because they have the kind of cockroach that likes to live in the little things outside and they scurry in the street and people think, oh my gosh, there's cockroaches everywhere. But that particular cockroach, and I don't know the name of it, sorry, I know you're gonna want to know, but likes to live outside versus the cockroaches that like to come and do a really good job living in our house. So yeah, and then we can give advice too, like if you get a sticky trap and you catch one, then we can get it and we can see like, oh, what kind is it, and give you advice on how to solve that problem.
Do they transmit diseases?
Do cockroaches transmit diseases? Not directly, but I think they can do that thing where they walk around places and they move germs on their feet. I think it's called fomites. And oh, somebody has their hand up.
Oh.
John, did you want to ask a question? I see John's hand up, but I don't know how to unmute John.
Let's see.
Oh no, John took his hand down.
Oh, maybe it was an accident.
Any final questions? Otherwise, you can find us online. Oh, John says if fleas get into the house, is there some service to get rid of them? So we don't do that. That's considered in a house. If you want advice, John, you can definitely call us and somebody from our lab or from our staff team can help walk through what's a good situation for you. Sometimes it depends on, are there pets in the house? Are the pets on flea and tick preventative? How do you think the ticks got in? Oh, sorry, not the ticks, the fleas got in so we can prevent the problem from keeping happening. So I think maybe a customized chat with you would be really good. Okay, I think that might be it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. It's great having you guys here. Our next talk is going to be from the Master Gardeners. And then the talk after that is going to be the Beekeepers Association. So I think both of these are going to be really good. And we're going to try this hybrid thing. So come to the library. There's not a lot of people here. And so I think you'll be safe. And so thank you very much again. This is going to be recorded and we'll put it on our website. Thanks for joining. I think you could.
The library will be closing in 15 minutes. The public computers will be shutting down in less than 10 minutes. Please release your print jobs and ask your final questions at this time. Thank you.
No, I think you'll be pissed off.